Oh, yeah, that's right. Mangler squigs, the chaos immediately unfolding as their animations play out, and just absolutely beautiful. The squigs, the Mangler squigs, what are they? Yes. Basically, each unit model is two squigs tied together by chains. As you can see, there's a couple of hapless goblins attached for going along for the ride. And basically, they work more or less like Doom Flares for the Skaven. That's probably the best comparison I would make. They're sort of like chariots, but they're more meant to be left in melee to continuously deal damage, rather than cycle charge like a traditional chariot. But anyway, yeah, this replay is already kicking off here as the Spider Riders tangle in Vanguard with the Chaos Warhounds. We've got Gorbad versus the new Bloodspeaker Support Lord for Khorne. So let's first take a look at HDS's green tide here. He's got Gorbad Ironclaw on his board, of course. Nice Support Lord. Comparable to Raponce, and we'll definitely check out the comparisons, rather, after the battle, so be sure to stay tuned for that. But this Great Leader here gives him +10/+10 for all nearby units. Quite nice. He's got some Bolt Throwers here, another new unit. Like the Dwarven Bolt Throwers, they've got a bunch of unit models. Don't do a ton of damage per model, but an extra +50 bonus versus large means they'll be nice against the right targets. They're relatively cheap as well. He's got the Broken Tusk mob here. We've got some Goblins and Orc Boy Spears, some Black Orc dual hand weapons there. Looks like an Orc Shaman, and the Spider Riders. I want to say Snagla is here somewhere. That sneaky goblin git is prowling around. Yep, looks like he just got a spider hatchling summon. So Snagla, let's take a look at his kit. Obviously can summon spider hatchlings, and he's also got a snare, which means hello, new competitive Greenskins character. You'll probably see him in just about every build, considering he has a summon and a snare. That's insanely strong. And he himself is definitely no pushover. I mean, he's basically like a Gobbo. Oh, what was the one we had before? Big Boss, like juiced up, a little bit better at everything. Similarly cheap, you know, base cost. So you really don't pay a lot for him here. But devastating flanker, obviously got Strider on his Spider. And this here, little magic missile, which is going to do some solid damage. So, for Khorne, on my side, Skilla and Fengrim. This is basically the Blood Beast character. Like the Blood Beast, he has basically 50-50 AP, non-AP damage. He's got a little mini Mortis with the Serpentine Tail, and also a Brass Collar of Khorne for spell and damage resistance as he gets kills. Also has a nice AoE Explosion for some AoE damage. And then I've got a couple of Khorne Gores here out on the flanks. Some Warhounds, as you saw there. Scar, Blood Wrath, is another legendary hero. He's an infantry brawler kind of dude. He's got area of effect buff that gives Sunder Armor here, as well as having some incoming healing modifier. I actually did not know this was even here until right now. Okay, so he actually gets more healing if you have healing as he gets kills, but then does he actually have a way to heal himself? Okay, this Bloodborne here, let's see. So if his health gets low, that will heal him. If he's got enough kills, he will get even more healing from it. That's actually kind of interesting mechanic. I didn't realize. I think that all comes baked in. You don't have to buy any of those, at least this Blood Tally and then the Bloodborne. Scaremore's Butchers, I believe, is his items, so I do have to take that one. Then it also has a nice single target, or rather hex around him. Debuff, gives leadership and vigor. The Support Lord, just to quickly go through him, he's got a heal that does damage to himself and heals someone else. To be honest, if I realized that Scar had like a healing increase, I might have been using this on him. But you'll see who I use it on instead. We've got Wild Abandon as well. This makes it so a unit loses melee defense, gains melee attack, and their entities cannot die. He's also got a nice direct damage, again, around him. Once he wades into combat, can use this to cause damage and leadership effects. And of course has the War Shrine mount, looking very cool. As he gets hit by some of those bolts, he's going to have the Giver of Furious Glory, which is still weapon strength and damage resistance now, actually. I think that might have been changed from before. That is pretty decent. He's also got this Gruesome Display, giving -5 melee attack, -4 leadership, vigor, and leadership to friendly units. just all the way around interesting support lord. Wanted to try him out here. So then we've got some Marauders to pad things out. Alright, with that long intro out of the way, let's get things rolling here as this fight in the woods escalates. The Khorne is going to move through onto the Spider Riders. We rush in some Furies as well. Scylla's going to jump on in. Black Orcs and the Boars charge in. Savage Boar Biggins even. So Scylla definitely getting stuck in. Is going to be getting some damage with the Serpentine Tail, but those Furies that had come down just instantly collapse, which is not great for me. Definitely need to try and keep them online as much as I can. That said, we did deal with the Spider Riders and these Bloodwake Berserkers. Didn't really talk too much about them. They're the Regiment of Renown of the new Wrathmonger units. They're essentially like Khorne's answer to the Doom Seekers of dwarfs, or even like Aspiring Champions, right? They're like a low model count, kind of heroic unit. Very, very good stats, splash damage and everything. They're going to get into combat here and try and hold back the Green Tide as it rushes in. Scar leading them. Scylla as well is going to actually be receiving the healing from the Bloodspeaker. I didn't really notice, though, the Bloodspeaker had been taking so much damage from the Bolt Throwers. They basically almost paid for themselves already. And I'm a little bit late coming in. You can see just now activating the second group of Furies and Doggos to come in and shut this down. Definitely lost some HP there, which was unnecessary, but let's see. We'll get back to the Mangler Squigs as they get into combat here. You can see their animations start to play out, and yeah, you can see why I compare them to the Doom Flayers, right? Like, they get into combat, and then they just start spinning and murderizing everything, and quite effectively, I might add. We'll check their value, of course, after the fact. But this unit here, I'm going to rear charge them with my Warhounds, see if we can't come in. They do take a pretty good amount of damage. They're not super tanky, you know, low melee defense, low HP, low armor. But their unit models do explode when they die, which deals even more damage. I'll see if I can catch it on one of these. I might have also missed, I think there was a Foot of Gork in this game. They did redo the VFX for the spells for Laura, Big, and Little Wah. Yeah, this guy, yeah, might not have missed it, but we'll try and keep a wide view in case that Foot of Gork pops up again. I want to say it was in the early phase of the battle, if I remember right. But anyway, yeah, the Mangler Squigs just continuing to deal damage there. They're down to 2 unit models on that one. 4 over here. The Bloodwake Berserkers just absolutely cutting up. Oh yeah, you see the different magic missile there, at least, for Gaze of Mork. Yeah, you see the Khorne too, that HP just bump going down is from the Mangler Squigs exploding. So yeah, quite an impactful unit. And we'll watch as this last one bursts into a pile of goo and just, yeah, wrecks both of these units. This Khorne managed to hold their leadership together. But now moving up, Scylla overextends. He had some Fury support initially, but moves past. He really needed to keep him on top of those Wrathmongers as much as possible. And he's got some animations where he likes to jump around a little bit, kind of, you know, Rat Ogre-like to a degree. But with the big Wah popping off, it's not looking good. Scylla's unbreakable momentarily. Or, no, he's just straight up unbreakable. Get a rear charge in here and try and rout some of these units. And, oh yeah, look at the Wrathmongers just in a pile of orc bodies. Absolutely appropriate. But that one gets killed there by the Squigs, and also explodes when they die. That's a trait for the Regiment of Renown specifically. They're going to run in here, try and finish off the last Mangler, try and just wreck through everything. I mean, they're really going to have to carry me at this point, them and Scar. But yeah, those Squigs exploding. Kills a handful more of them. We're going to wade into combat here with the Bloodspeaker. See, I mean, he's doomed anyway, but I wanted to see if I could get one more big AoE burst. And see, the Sting of Snagla does hit him and applies that nasty debuff too. So, like, yeah, basically an assassination debuff and a magic missile all in one. And the debuff of melee defense puts him down to 0. He gets absolutely wrecked on the surround by all the spears. Gorbad victoriously, covered in red, just clubs him right over. Absolutely amazing. And Snagla and him going to move in to finish off Scar, who is himself a bit of a blood beast, to be honest. But quite the Giga Chad, it must be said. Him and the handful of Wrathmongers that remain holding the line, trying to spill as much blood for Khorne as they can before they are inevitably army lost. So yeah, interesting game for sure. Definitely experimental builds on both sides, although I think this is pretty solid overall, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, the Goblin Bolt Throw, I guess, at the end of the day, didn't quite pay for itself. I think it's like 600, 650. We'll double check. The Mangler Squigs, though, are 1,000 apiece, and although they both die in campaign, that would be a little bit painful. In multiplayer, that's actually really great. The fact they were able to get so much value, and in particular, some of them were fighting like Khorne, right? The dedicated anti-large armor piercing infantry. So, yeah, for me, definitely the Wrathmongers were the best part of the build. Everything else kind of struggled to a degree. Scar probably pays for himself. We'll look at his cost also here in just a second. Skilla, again, similar kind of amount of value. Not quite as much, but just, I don't know, less impressive overall, I think, given he is more expensive. Gorbad seems solid. I like his support abilities. Snagla also. Probably get some really nice tactical value with the summons and the debuffs and everything. And himself, about 700 value. Not too bad. Yeah, Black Orcs, you know, they do some value damage as well. But really, the MVPs for sure for the Green Tide are these Manglers. And it is a pretty nice combined arms victory, it must be said. Befitting Gorbad. But let's take a look now at some of these units. Starting with the Green Tide, because Gorbad and just, you know, Orcs and Goblins in general I'm definitely a fan of, so let's pull up for comparison's sake. Or Réponse. So like I said, Horse, or in this case Boar, Support Lord, is 100 points more expensive than Réponse, but pretty similar stats. Has more HP, less armor, a little bit better leadership, a little bit slower, more melee attack, less melee defense, better weapon strength, and charge. So on the whole, probably slightly better, befitting his 100 extra cost. Their ability sets are also pretty similar, right? You've got the Great Leader, him. Réponse has the Fleur-de-Lis banner, although this one does not give as impactful of a buff, and does require Réponse to be in melee, so in his way, the Great Leader is just better. And then he's also got Orcs are the best. This is like a single target, seems like, buff that will give some nice melee attack and weapon strength. Pretty nice stuff there. This one also, again, a defensive buff. Could be especially useful if you're running like some Stone Trolls or something in your build. And then also get some massive self-buff item. These ones tend to be the first thing you would cut if you're trying to save on cost, but I mean, even with his 3 support abilities, only 1750 for a serviceable Horse Combat Lord with some really nice support abilities. It's definitely not terrible. He's not like super exciting or anything, but I mean, I like support Lords. It may be nice for him to have like one AoE damage option as well, but it's, you know, as it is, decent. Yeah, Snagla is definitely the one for Greenskins. That's the big winner, having both the snare and summon, like I mentioned. The sting also, that contact effect is really nasty, plus as an added bonus of damage. The only thing is if it misses, you probably feel really bad. Again, he has a self buff. You take it if you want it. Slippery also is nice if you have the extra gold. But as for the rest, we didn't see Black Orcs shields here, but they are just Black Orcs with shields. I don't know what you were expecting. But the Manglers, let's look at them. So, yeah, 1,000 points. They do have pretty low HP, so you do kind of expect to lose them, which is, again, in campaign, they're going to be tough to use, probably because of that. But in multiplayer, they are very, very good. And yeah, they're consistently going to pay for themselves if you throw them into armored infantry, especially with support. The bolt thrower, yeah, 650 didn't quite pay for itself there in terms of raw value, but tactically that value was against my lord, which is obviously super important. And then also, you know, just kind of pulling me into a position that is disfavorable. Also pretty decent. The Regiment of Renown we didn't see there, but picks up poison and has snipe. Doesn't have stock, but if you hide it in the woods, it will stay hidden while it's firing, which on some maps, this means that this could effectively counterfire enemy artillery pieces, which could potentially be a really nice tech for the Green Tide, again, in certain maps and matchups, if you expect that, although Green Tide definitely has enough rush tools to just make it happen in melee, so, like, if I'm thinking from an Empire matchup, like, is it really super viable to go super heavy artillery? Anyway, that aside, what else? Was there anything? I think that was the main things we wanted to talk about. On this side, we definitely can jump back over to Khorne once again. And again, I like support lords. Bloodspeaker definitely has some interesting abilities. I don't know that this blood sacrifice is good. I mean, doing damage to your lord to heal something else. I mean, I guess if you're healing something that has a high enough base HP pool, this could be worth it. And especially like if he's on the War Shrine, he's a huge target, but he also has 11,000 HP. So you have a little bit to spare to try and give that out. Still, it's, I mean, you're doing damage to your lord intentionally. So like that's a choice. These other ones I think are probably a little bit better. I don't know. This didn't seem to do an insane amount of damage, but if you could time the leadership debuff up at a good time, you could potentially get some good uses out of it. The only problem is that there's just other lords for Khorne that are just, like, way better in general. And the support abilities here, while they're cool and good, and, you know, you could definitely win some games with this guy. He's not terrible. I just don't think, yeah, when you got stuff like Scarbrand walking around, or even Valkia's, you know, decent. I would even argue like Arbol and Skulltaker are both decent options as well. We'll talk more about them in other videos. I already talked about Arbol, actually. Go check that out if you haven't. But, yeah, I mean, it's nice to have the Bloodspeaker in campaign. I will say his skill tree is really nice, and I think he's a great lord to take in campaign for sure. But Scar here, anyway, moving on, he's an infantry kind of brawler type. If we compare him to another Chaos Infantry bro of a different god, obviously Akold's role is a little bit different. He's kind of a, you know, a self-healing tank, but has a relatively similar stat profile when it comes to attack, defense, anti-infantry, weapon strength, everything else. Scar, I think, has faster attack animations. That is one thing that's not necessarily reflected on the unit card. And then, of course, we also saw that little self-heal mechanic, which I don't know if that actually went off in the battle I played, but given the only way you can, like, actively heal these guys is through the Bloodspeaker, these two together, you know, maybe it's worth it to take the Blood Sacrifice, but then again, Scar only has, like, 5,600 base HP, right? So even if this is charged up to 100%, that's essentially like healing something with 10,000 HP, which I guess is actually, like I said, pretty decent, potentially. But, I don't know, a lot of theory crafting there. Skilla, on the other hand, is, I mean, like the Blood Beast, like I said, kind of half AP. It's a little bit of a weird one. It does get Permanent Frenzy, which is kind of nice. But, yeah, with it just very basic kind of monster here. The one thing, relatively low HP, and once you start putting some abilities on him, he gets super expensive super fast. Taking him all the way down at just 1,400, you could probably get some good value out of him, but it's just, I don't know. Comparing him to somebody like Gorich, Gorich has actual AP. He does have probably more overall weapon strength. A little bit less, actually. Better armor, a little bit less HP. Pretty comparable. Of course, Skilla being unbreakable is a big benefit as well. But, I mean, Gorich base price, let's see. 1,600. Yeah, he's a little bit more expensive. I guess paying for that AP, but has just straight up AP and an anti-infantry bonus as well, plus 30. So 90 melee attack against infantry, and also has probably better AoE damage, like the Serpentine Tail, because the damage scaling is so low. It's not great, to be honest. Like, it's basically on par with something like this Warpstone armor, which, you know, on a cheap character like a Warlock Engineer is a nice little bit of extra damage, but when he's on something as expensive as Skilla base costs, I guess if you have the extra gold, you could take it, but if you're taking skill in the first place, like, just ask yourself some questions. Yeah, I would say Evisceration is just better than Serpentine Tail. I mean, you can use it actively. It does a big amount of burst damage. So overall, I would say not as good as Gorich, at least early impressions. I could definitely be wrong about all of this. Let's see, was there anything else? Oh yeah, the Wrathmongers. Probably my favorite unit in the DLC so far for Khorne. These guys are the ultimate absolute Giga Chads. So if I pull up the dwarfs here, you can see in comparison to Doomseekers, yeah, they are more expensive than Doomseekers. They have armor, whereas Doomseekers do not. And Doomseekers are dedicated anti-infantry, whereas these guys are more generalist. They do have 25 more weapon strength in general, so just even better against infantry. and all the way around just better. I mean, they're not unbreakable, which is also something. But yeah, then of course you've got the Regiment of Renown, which gets armor sundering, magic damage, and fire damage, and they blow up. Just great. Absolutely wonderful. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you did miss my video about Khorne, I actually don't know if it's out yet, but regardless, be sure to check out the channel for the video about Khorne. Thank you all so much for watching. It's been my absolute pleasure. Be sure to stay tuned for more early access. Love, and we'll see you next time.